Well, morning everybody. We've done a quick sound check, so I'm sure you can hear me. Because of the size of the audience, I won't be able to take any questions at the time, and I'll be on a call immediately after this, so please don't try and ring me. But if you've got any queries, by all means drop me a line, and I'll do my best to answer them over the next few days and weeks. So the reason I've called the presentation was really to show you some capability and the sort of thing that we can achieve if we have the right processes with the right client, and we choose the right partners. And really what we're doing at Eiffage Kia is effectively helping them to grow their margins and predictability as well as grow their business. But what we are doing is helping them integrate BIM, project controls and data. But there's a number of key takeaways. I'll show you the sort of possibilities that that we're capable of with the right people now. And really it's just about getting you thinking all about the opportunities, so that if you spot this type of thing, you might be able to funnel it into pipeline. Okay, so here we go. What I'm going to do first is just show you a little bit of a fly through of HS2 model. So what we've got here are something like 250 model files covering individual structures and earthworks for contract C2. They're all federated, so they're all put together. You can actually drill right down into the asset tree and look at particular structures or parts of structures. So we've done that data load as part of a proof of concept. And what I'm going to show you is well, it's all very well, pretty picture, and it's quite impressive, but what are we going to do with that data? But just think for a moment, there's 40 kilometers of railway in here, 40 kilometers of railway route with something like 40 structures. That's a lot of information, and all of this has to be controlled. There's something like 1,300 control accounts planned on this job. So a lot of information, and a lot of it, to do it effectively, we need to try and automate the processes and be very slick. But look how light that tool is. To me, that's really quite impressive. It only takes a few seconds to load and it's all there. Okay, so the big question is though, what are we going to do with it? So, and why? So, what we're going to do with it, guys, is we're going to put that model and all the components of that model right at the heart of the program control cycle, all the way from checking the takeoff that's been done for quantities. Oh, sorry, someone's got a microphone on. Please could you mute your mic? Thank you. Someone's got a microphone on, please mute. Thanks very much. So we're going to follow that through the takeoff, through the control cycle, takeoff, estimating. We're going to link all of this to the schedule. That's a typical pain point in controls, spreading cost over time. We're going to form a baseline, and we're going to put that through the change and progress capture process once every period, initially probably a month, but then we hope to get down to weeks. And that gives a number of challenges, or it's given a number of challenges so far, and there'll certainly be more. But it's already starting to show benefits, that approach. What I really want to do is take you through some of those critical success factors and what the benefits are, just so that you're aware of what the capability is now. Now, already, and this is really just by linking together spreadsheets, to be honest, with some good data structures, we're seeing something like a 14% margin increase. So typically construction margins will be about 2.5%. We're getting around about another 0.5% on that, and we're getting that. We know we're getting that because we've saved 1 to 2 roles on the project so far, and that's just with linking together spreadsheets. That's without even thinking about the management time we save in terms of avoiding argument about what's fact, slicker meetings, without even using databases, so that we haven't done any really work on trying to find out what we know we don't know, or even what we don't know we don't know. So there's much more to come. Much more to come. Now, typically, first problem statement. So communication. A lot of you will probably be familiar with the communication issue between sort of planning, engineering, commercial. There's still a tendency in the industry to work in silos, and all the deliverables for each of those functions could be defined in different structures as well. So what tends to happen, if we're not careful, is you get duplication or triplication of effort with each of those functions really carrying out, in some cases, very similar tasks on managing controls data. So we want to try and cut that out. And we certainly want to try and cut it out using spreadsheets, because the number of errors you get in spreadsheets and the sort of person power to stitch them together is huge. So that's kind of where we are. And in some cases, controls is even in a different universe. I think it's improving, but we still see a lot of clients, particularly who are contractors, sort of treating controls, if you like, as a little bit of an add-on, because it's something that the client has asked for. But controls at Eiffage Kia really will be at the centre of and the hub of information management. Now, the problem with communication with all of that is that you can't really get consistent or necessarily accurate information. Quite a lot of it's contradictory, because you tend to get three different views of the universe. And in terms of what happens at risk analysis, it's almost little more than guesswork, because we tend not to be able to build up good hard data about what risks actually occur. So we want to break down those silos, but that's the first problem statement. That's the first issue. Now, second issue is really around integrating data structures. So in practice, that might mean, shall we say, have an asset breakdown structure. So on the left, you might see an asset there, broken into abutments, piers, and deck, with piling and foundations and walls. But typically, the breakdown for the program might be subtly different. Frequently, all the piling is grouped together, for example, or the deck might be split into fabrication and erection of steelwork. So those two structures, with the best will in the world, tend to be different. It helps if they're closely aligned, but they do tend to be different. And then if you look at the cost breakdown structure, which I've just flashed up on the left there, again, that tends to be different again. On Eiffage Kia, we're using Civil Engineering Standard Method of Measurement 4, which effectively breaks things down into the type of silos you see there: concrete, ancillaries, piling. So you tend to get, for example, concrete measured across the whole structure, but what you want to know as a planning engineer and a controls engineer is how much concrete is in the foundation, the substructure, and the deck, because that is how your program's put together, and that's how you want to track key quantities and costs. So, in practice, integration means looking at these different structures and stitching them together somehow, and that can be very time-consuming with a lot of information, a lot of data. So problem statement 2. Problem statement 3, of course, is most people, or many people on a project, might actually be busy firefighting or dealing with the more immediate things. So finding the headroom and the right client who's got the innovative attitude and environment to allow us to explore these options, it's not that common. When we find it, we really want to stick with those clients. In my opinion, they're potentially areas where we can develop ourselves a lot as well as add value to them. So they're busy on that burning platform, and we need to try and find them a way off that. But of course, the sort of fourth problem statement is a lot of people are really blind to the possible, partly because they're busy fighting fires, but in reality, teams will have all the capability that they need within themselves to deliver all of this. We often just need to make them aware of what's possible and take them through a process. The issues nowadays, I don't think, are so much technical issues, although there are some. They're more around leadership and involvement. But the fact is, at the moment, people tend to carry on doing the same old thing, even if they've got the solution within them. One of the places we can really add value is bringing sort of fresh perspectives to these problem solutions by showing people what's possible. So, what's important in terms of tackling those problems? Well, to me, the first one is leadership, and certainly our project control survey bore this out. But leadership, both in the client organisation at senior management level, but also in the controls group, and bringing together various stakeholders of planning, commercial, engineering, document management, change management. That's really where we can add a lot of value. And the fact is, people have got a big capacity for change. They tend to underestimate it, and people will always throw you an objection. Well, it's not the right time to do this. It's difficult. We'll just wait a little bit later. So what we need to be doing is identifying the right clients who share this leadership vision and help them push on. Because if we give them a vision of what's possible, that makes it a lot easier to make the change. And what we found is it's selling the benefit is one thing. You can try and do that through hard data, but there's not a lot of data around at the moment. But if you think about that sort of 0.5% minimum benefit on a 20 million project, it's normally worth spending 100k on some sort of control solution, whether that's some additional practitioners or some sort of combined software and practitioner solution. It's normally worthwhile doing that. Certainly what we found with Highways England. So look for leadership, and let's try and pick the clients who have the right leadership, work with those, develop the relationships with those, and sell the vision ourselves. So second success factor, and this is one that we've seen in Eiffage Kia as well, is actually people not necessarily working to their organisational structure. I mean, this quote here, every company has two organisational structures. You've got the formal one and the everyday relationship one. And no matter where change management or risk management or cost management lies, whether it's under controls or under a different structure, what's important is how we work together with people. And if I was doing what I've done at Eiffage Kia again, I would spend much more time working on the leadership side and much more time networking, I think, even more time. And we're nearly there with this. We have a little bit more to do to check that everything works out in relation to the common data environment that Eiffage Kia are using. And it's so easy to miss one stakeholder out or not necessarily keep them fully on board. But the attitude's important, and the type of team that we really like to work with are the one where you can come up to someone and explain an issue that you have, or you can listen to them, and you end up going away from that conversation feeling that you'll go maybe 5% further yourself to save them 10%, or vice versa. Really, really helpful. Whatever happens, there's some key relationships there between the controls manager and the commercial manager and the engineering manager are absolutely fundamental. And the third critical success factor we've found on Eiffage Kia is involvement. So a picture of Moscow there, the cathedral in Moscow, and actually one of the things that's really important when you're looking for a solution to a problem, well, you first of all identifying the problem, but when you start to look for a solution is to involve people. So one of the ways you can do that is to look at some sort of requirements gathering for whatever system solution there is. And one way of doing that is using what's called Moscow rules. So this is where you identify requirements and you categorize them as, must be able to, should be able to, could do, would be nice to, hence Moscow. And experience has been that actually it can be very difficult to gather these requirements, particularly if people don't know what's possible. So what we're able to do is help them through that process by showing them some of the possibilities, but also coming up with some key questions for starting to gather these requirements. And then it's really important to take the team through a selection process. So gather a team who are interested in the outcome. Get some potential vendors pre-qualified, prepare some example data, give them a tender competition in the context of your organization, maybe give them some background information, your controls plan, your BIM execution plan, Be clear about any questions that are, pass or fail. Be clear about the quality scoring. And if I was doing this again, I would actually spend even more time on building the team and making sure that they understood the requirements very clearly. It became actually quite clear during one of the presentations that some of the team hadn't fully understood the requirements, which is slightly ironic. But if you get that involvement in place, and then you're able to do some sort of proof of concept with a suitable system, that will go a long, long way to making sure that people actually use it when it's there, rather than starting the debate about whether it should be used. Now, we found this at Highways England when we actually initially went straight in there and said, yeah, well, what you need is Prism. You've already got P6, so yeah, we'll come and set that up for you. And management saying, fantastic. We love the dashboards. If you can do that in Prism, great. And then we actually had to spend 4 to 6 months actually switching the team on to what that would do for them, because we hadn't been through that selection process and involvement process. That should say key success factor number 5, but this is about information needs. Really, really important that when you're clear about what you want to do and what information you need, that is communicated across the supply chain. So, for example, under NEC, option C subcontract, which is a target contract, the subcontractors get paid effectively what they've spent, provided it's allowable. And your client might have said, well, yeah, fine, you're on option C, but there are some specific control requirements for you. I need you, for example, to be telling me what cost you've spent against each asset, or give me some earned value management information against each asset. Tell me what your budget was, what you should have spent, what you have spent, what you've earned. And of course, if those information requirements don't get communicated properly to a subcontractor, what happens at the end of the month is you get all the timesheets and you get all the plant hire sheets, and the contractor says, there you go, that's what I've spent, here's my application, and you haven't a blind idea about where they've spent it. So, the problem of triplication of data just in the contractor organization has then been multiplied through the subcontracts, and systems will be destined to fail. So one of the things we've done at Eiffage Kia is actually built in some information management requirements to the subcontract, and that's a really, really valuable place where we can help, because it's not something that commonly is done very well. So how does it work? Well, the sort of thing it means is we have to try and provide links between the schedule, the model, and some sort of estimate cost breakdown structure. So what I'm showing you here is a small picture of an underbridge. I've got 4 of those wing walls highlighted, and for each item in the bill of quantities, what we really need to do is produce some electronic record of the quantities of each of the bill items for each of those modelled components. So let's suppose each of those 4 wing walls was a separate modelled component. That's what we need to be tracking. And that's what we relate to the program. So that's what gives us our many-to-many links. So the concrete there in the bill is probably just measured as concrete across the whole bill. Whereas what we really want is to have some takeoff lines for each of those bill items, for each of the components. A lot of data. But what it means is that when we look at one of those wing walls and we see all the takeoff lines for each of the bills, what we can do is map each of those to a Primavera activity, or to a control account, or to a subcontractor. And pretty soon you can start to see why Excel doesn't cut this. It'll fall over because there's just so much data there, but databases do. But the advantage of doing all of that, guys, is not only do you get a really good time phase baseline, but now it's possible to come up with field devices where people can see a picture of that structure, and effectively they come along each of those lines there and say, is it done, is it not done? And what that does is it gives you not just a valuation for your commercial team based on your cost breakdown structure, because it's mapped to the program. It gives you the percentage complete for the program as well as potentially start and finish dates, and it gives us percentage complete for earned value information at the same time. So this is one of the just one of the examples where we can save a lot of time. And if you want to know a little bit more about how we're planning to tackle that at LogiKal, please do drop me a line. But I see that as one of the key technical issues. There's clearly lots of other success factors in there that are important. Leadership, attitude, making sure you've gone through a selection process, all sorts of things. So a couple of takeaways. Okay, just to get you thinking. First of all, I mean, we as a business are very well positioned to start to integrate this digital design with estimating and scheduling data to form an overall control solution. And the reason we're well positioned is, to be honest, that the vendors don't necessarily understand the industry, and most practitioners in design, estimating and scheduling don't really understand controls or how solutions work, whereas we're very well positioned to be able to integrate the two. But there are normally lots of objections to a service like that and a solution that does that. So, it's not going to work for every client. It's not a panacea. We have to go through a selection process. We have to tailor our solution and our offering to the maturity of the clients. But strong leadership on the host client is really, really important, and involvement in stakeholders is incredibly important. And if I had my time again at LogiKal, I would spend more time on involvement. We need to be able to communicate all the information needs very well to the supply chain. It's not, in my opinion, done terribly well across many businesses, but again, we're very well positioned to help with that because we work on all sides of the industry. Fourth takeaway, look for solutions that give you many-to-many links between bill items and schedule activities. If you can use the model components as the link, that's fantastic. It tends to link the estimate, the bill, the schedule, the controlling structure all together. And of course, you've got resources behind that, which effectively gives you information for costing and resourcing, at least time profiling that without actually having to go through the pain of loading the program with that data. It's in a database that's back to back with the program effectively. Although you could load the program. It becomes more complicated to maintain, I think. So that's another takeaway. Just because the contract says you shall supply a cost-loaded program, that doesn't necessarily mean a cost-loaded P6 file. By the way, Costain, Strabag, Skanska on HS2 have announced that they've done something similar. They announced some large savings in estimating at the moment for one of their contracts on HS2, effectively cutting the takeoff team for the estimate drastically there. They were down to, they claimed 2 people from 12, but I think those claims are certainly plausible. And I would say there's considerable savings in controlling effort downstream. That's what I'd expect. So takeaways, guys, we're well positioned to integrate this. Have a think about this. Just get you thinking about this. Think about potential opportunities and see if you can feed them into the supply chain. These are fantastic opportunities to place teams and grow ourselves as well as the client. And I just want to leave you with a little solution fly through here. It's about 3 minutes long. So there you go. We're looking at one bridge there. You import that model from a design modeling tool. There's lots of them about. And then what happens is we can start to check takeoff quantities for that. So I'm looking at a bill there, clicking on a bill item and clicking on a takeoff line, and you can actually see which component is affected of each takeoff line, and even visualize exactly what areas or volumes or lengths are being measured. So typically you want to be measuring faces of formwork in different thickness groups, so that's all traceable. In this particular solution, we can see that in the estimate as well. Here's an estimate for a footbridge. So I can click on different areas of the estimate and you'll see the components there that actually belong to that. We can drill right down. and look at the estimate details. So this estimate has all been pre-prepared, and what we have done is effectively checked the quantities using the model. So you can see a difference there. 93 was the takeoff quantity, 130 cubic meters we've measured from the model. But we've used the client's estimating details right down to their base libraries. Change now to a view of the schedule on the left there, the bill of quantities in the middle. And this is how you link everything to the schedule. You basically do a bit of dragging and dropping. Hassan tried this the other day and it worked quite well. And what's powerful here is you can use the viewer to isolate particular objects where you just want to take the bill quantities for those items to a particular program activity. So this really helps, for example, in splitting earthworks across sections, or splitting concrete across different abutment components. When you've got that all linked, this then gets coded up effectively to a control account structure. So that, again, that's drag and drop. So against each of those structures, we've now got a time-phased baseline. And here's the really nice piece. You can export this to a field device where people can actually collect progress. So this is the program, but what we're looking at here are all the objects linked to each of the program activities. And I'm clicking on them here and just verifying what their percentage complete is. It's either 0 to 100, and that all rolls up to that program, which we then import. And that gives us our controlling view. You can see a whole load of costs to complete there that have come from being time phased by the current program. In a minute I'll change to another view that will show you the type of thing that you need to know for cost value reconciliation, the target price, any changes, work scheduled, work performed, cost to complete, and so on. So I think we're pretty much at the end. It was a short one, a sweet one. I've recorded it, so we'll put it on the knowledge bank. But the main takeaways, guys, see what's possible out there in the market now. Bear in mind we're in unique positions to help clients with this if they're the right client and they've got the right attitude. It won't be every client. There are lots of other places we can add value as well. But this is a real passion for me, and I think it will potentially save clients a lot of money and could really help grow our business. So with that, I'll stop. That's been a half hour. As I say, I'm afraid I can't take any calls straight away because I'm on another one, but if there are any queries, please do drop me a line and I'll do my best to answer them over the next couple of days and weeks. So thanks very much. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll catch up with you all again soon. Bye for now.